The pharmacist said my wife picked up prenatal vitamins. I had had a vasectomy. The pharmacist's words hit me like a freight train at 3:47 p.m. on what had been a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Mr. Davidson, I have your wife's prenatal vitamins ready for pickup. I stood there at the Walgreens counter, mouth slightly open, holding the prescription bag I'd come to collect for my own blood pressure medication. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while my brain tried to process what Jennifer, the pharmacist I'd known for 3 years, had just said. I'm sorry, what? Sarah's prenatal vitamins, she repeated, already turning to grab a small white bag from the shelf behind her. She usually picks them up herself, but since you're here. She placed the bag next to mine with a knowing smile. How exciting for you too. When's the baby due? My vasectomy scar gave a phantom throb. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days since Dr. Peterson had snipped and sealed my vas deferens in his sterile office on Maple Street. I remembered the date exactly because Sarah had driven me home afterward, bought me ice cream, and we'd watched Netflix while I recovered on our gray sectional sofa. Oh, I managed, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. She wanted to keep it a surprise a little longer. Jennifer's face lit up. Of course. My lips are sealed. But congratulations. She's been picking these up for about 6 weeks now. The prenatal plus formula, those are the good ones. 6 weeks. My hands felt numb as I took both bags, Sarah's secret vitamins weighing practically nothing but feeling like lead in my palm. Thanks, Jennifer. Have a good day. I walked to my Honda Civic in the parking lot on autopilot, my mind reeling. 6 weeks of prenatal vitamins. Sarah hadn't mentioned feeling sick, hadn't shown any signs, hadn't said a single word about pregnancy. We'd been trying for kids for 2 years before my vasectomy, 2 years of negative tests, doctor visits, fertility consultations, tears, and finally my decision to take permanent action after we'd agreed we were done putting ourselves through that emotional ringer. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the prescription label, Sarah Davidson, Prenatal Plus, take 1 daily with food. Quantity, 30. Refills, 5. This wasn't some mistake or old prescription. This was current, intentional, ongoing. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you, Red Heart. Working late. She'd been doing that a lot lately, staying at her marketing firm until 8 or 9 p.m., coming home tired and distracted. I'd chalked it up to the Morrison account she'd been stressed about, the one that required so many client dinners and weekend strategy sessions. I started the car and drove home to our 2-bedroom house on Elm Street, the house we bought 4 years ago with dreams of filling that second bedroom with a nursery. The same house where Sarah kissed me goodbye every morning and told me she loved me. Where we'd made love just 3 nights ago, her whispering sweet things in my ear afterward. I parked in our driveway next to Sarah's empty spot and looked at our house, white siding, black shutters, the rose bushes she'd planted last spring blooming pink along the front porch. Everything looked exactly the same as it had this morning, but somehow completely different. Because somewhere inside those familiar walls, my wife of 8 years was hiding prenatal vitamins, and I had no idea who she really was anymore. I sat in my car for another 10 minutes, staring at those damn vitamins through the white paper bag. The prescription label might as well have been written in a foreign language for how surreal this felt. Sarah Davidson. My Sarah. Taking prenatal vitamins while married to a man who couldn't possibly be the father. Finally, I walked inside and went straight to our master bathroom. If she was hiding vitamins at a pharmacy, what else might she be hiding at home? I started with her usual spots, the medicine cabinet behind our mirror, the drawer where she kept her birth control pills she apparently no longer needed. Nothing. Then I checked places I'd never thought to look before, the tampon box under the sink, inside her makeup bag, behind the extra toilet paper in the linen closet. In the pocket of her bathrobe hanging on the bathroom door, my fingers found something that made my stomach drop further, a folded piece of paper from Dr. Martinez's office, not our family doctor, Dr. Chen, but someone I'd never heard of. An appointment reminder for prenatal consultation, scheduled for this Thursday at 2:15 p.m. This Thursday. 2 days from now. While I'd be at work, thinking my wife was at her marketing job, she'd be at an OBGYN discussing her pregnancy with another man's child. I photographed the appointment slip with my phone, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. My hands were shaking now, a fine tremor that made it hard to fold the paper along its original creases. The house felt different as I walked through it. The framed wedding photos on the mantel, Sarah in her flowing white dress, me in my navy suit, both of us laughing at something my brother had said during the reception. The couch where we'd watched 1,000 movies together. The kitchen table where we ate breakfast this morning, where she'd kissed my cheek and said, "Have a good day, babe," like she had every day for 8 years. How long had she been lying to me? How many of those kisses were fake? How many times had she come home from being with him and slid into bed next to me, letting me hold her while she carried his child? I needed to know who him was, but I also needed to be smart about this. One Google search later, I'd found Dr. Maria Martinez, OBGYN, with an office 15 minutes across town. Her website showed a kind-looking woman in her 50s with graying hair and warm eyes, the kind of doctor you'd trust with your pregnancy. My phone rang, making me jump. Sarah's contact photo filled the screen, a picture I'd taken of her last summer at the beach, sun-kissed and laughing, her hair whipping in the ocean breeze. Hey, I answered, proud that my voice sounded normal. Hi, honey. Just wanted to let you know I'll definitely be late tonight. The Morrison presentation is kicking our ass. She sounded tired, stressed. Maybe it wasn't entirely an act. Did you eat dinner already? Yeah, I grabbed something. The lie came easier than I expected. I was still holding her prenatal vitamins. Everything okay? You sound exhausted. Just work stuff. This client is so demanding. Marcus and I might have to work through the weekend again to get everything ready for Monday's pitch. Marcus. She'd mentioned him before, Marcus Chen, one of the other account managers at her firm. Mid-30s, divorced, apparently good-looking based on Sarah's casual comments about him over the past few months. That sucks, I said. Maybe after this project wraps up, we could take a weekend trip somewhere. Just us. That sounds perfect, she said, and for a moment, she sounded like the Sarah I fell in love with. I love you, David. Love you too. After she hung up, I stared at my phone. Marcus Chen. I was probably going to remember that name for the rest of my life. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time Sarah shifted beside me in bed, every soft breath she took, every unconscious way she curled against my shoulder, it all felt like evidence of her betrayal. At 2:17 a.m., I gave up and went to the kitchen, sitting at our table with my laptop and a cup of coffee that tasted like ash. Marcus Chen wasn't hard to find online. LinkedIn showed his professional headshot, dark hair, confident smile, the kind of guy who probably drove a BMW and wore expensive cologne. He'd been at Brennan & Associates Marketing for 18 months, which meant Sarah had known him for over a year. His Facebook was mostly private, but his profile picture showed him at some charity golf tournament from last month, looking tan and successful. I scrolled through Sarah's social media with fresh eyes, looking for clues I'd missed. There, a group photo from the office Christmas party last December. Sarah in her red cocktail dress, the one I'd helped her pick out, standing next to Marcus. His hand wasn't quite touching her waist, but it was close. Too close for colleagues. In the background, other coworkers were clearly drunk and laughing, but Sarah and Marcus were looking at each other like they shared a private joke. How had I not seen it then? How many signs had I missed while trusting the woman sleeping 20 feet away? My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Jake, still on for golf Saturday morning. 8 a.m. tea time at Riverside. Saturday. 2 days after Sarah's prenatal appointment, assuming she kept it. I texted back, might have to rain check. Some stuff came up. Everything okay? I stared at that question for 5 minutes before typing, yeah, just work stuff. Another lie. My life was apparently full of them now. At 3:42 a.m., I made a decision that felt both crazy and completely rational. I was going to follow her to that appointment on Thursday. I needed to see this with my own eyes, needed to confirm what I already knew in my gut. The David from yesterday would have confronted her directly, would have demanded answers and explanations. But that David had lived in a world where his wife of 8 years could be trusted. This David, the one holding evidence of her deception, needed to be smarter. I called in sick to work on Thursday for the first time in 3 years. At 1:45 p.m., I was parked across the street from Dr. Martinez's office in my Honda, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap like some amateur private investigator. The medical complex was busy enough that one more car in the parking area wouldn't draw attention. At exactly 2:08 p.m., Sarah's silver Camry pulled into the lot. I watched her check her makeup in the rearview mirror, grab her purse, and walk toward the building with the confident stride I'd admired for years. She was wearing the blue blouse I bought her for her birthday, paired with black slacks that now seemed potentially loose around her waist. Was she already showing? At 6 weeks, probably not, but my eyes searched for changes in her silhouette anyway. She disappeared into the building, and I sat there feeling like the biggest fool in the world. My wife was inside discussing her pregnancy with another man's baby while I played spy in a parking lot, too cowardly to march in there and confront her. 43 minutes later, she emerged carrying a small white bag, probably more vitamins or other prenatal supplements, and a folder of paperwork. She was smiling, the kind of radiant smile I remembered from our early dating days. The smile of a woman excited about her future. A future that apparently didn't include me. She drove away toward downtown, presumably back to work where she'd continue the charade of her normal day. I followed at a distance, feeling simultaneously justified and disgusting for stalking my own wife. But she wasn't really my wife anymore, was she? She was a stranger wearing Sarah's face. That evening, Sarah came home at her usual late time, 8:47 p.m. according to the kitchen clock, carrying Thai takeout from our favorite place on 5th Street. She kissed my cheek like always, her lips feeling like ice against my skin. Sorry I'm so late again, she said, unpacking pad Thai and spring rolls. Marcus and I finally cracked the Morrison account strategy. I think we've got something really special. Marcus and I. The words hit like physical blows. That's great, I managed. You've been working so hard on it. She smiled, that radiant glow from the parking lot still lingering on her face. I have some good news, actually. All this overtime is paying off, literally. Jenkins pulled me aside today and hinted at a promotion. Senior account manager, probably a $15,000 raise. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. When would that start? If it happens. Probably in the next month or two. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. David, this could change everything for us. We could finally start that family fund we talked about, maybe look at a bigger house. Family fund. The irony was so sharp it cut. She was already growing her family, just not with me. Speaking of family, I said carefully, testing the waters, my sister called today. She's pregnant again. Third kid. Sarah's face flickered, just for a microsecond, before settling back into her normal expression. That's wonderful for Jessica. She and Tom must be thrilled. Yeah, she was asking if we ever think about trying again. You know, since it's been a few years since we stopped trying. The silence stretched for exactly 7 seconds. I counted them. I don't know, Sarah said finally. My career is just taking off. Maybe in a year or two we could revisit it. A year or two. By then, she'd have given birth to Marcus's child and somehow convinced me it was mine. The vasectomy she thought was our secret would become her biggest problem. How exactly was she planning to handle that? Claim it failed? Pretend it was a miracle? Of course, I said. No rush. Later that night, while Sarah showered, I did something that 3 days ago would have been unthinkable. I went through her phone. Her password was still our anniversary date, October 15th. She hadn't even bothered to change it. The betrayal of that small, trusting detail somehow made everything worse. I found the text thread with Marcus immediately. The most recent messages were from this afternoon. Marcus, how did the appointment go? Sarah, perfect. Everything looks great. Dr. M says I'm right on track. Marcus, I wish I could have been there with you. Sarah, soon. Just need a little more time to figure out the timing. Marcus, I love you. Both of you. Sarah, love you too, red heart, red heart. Both of you. The baby. My hands shook as I scrolled up through weeks of messages. Can't wait to tell David about the pregnancy. He's going to be so surprised, winking face. The vasectomy thing is actually perfect timing. He'll never suspect. Marcus, I feel terrible lying to him, but we can't tell him the truth now. It would destroy him. After everything settles down, maybe we can figure out how to be together properly. There were dozens more. Intimate messages about their future, about the baby, about their plans. And then I found the messages from 7 weeks ago that made my blood freeze. Sarah, I'm late. Marcus, are you sure? Sarah, took 3 tests. All positive. Marcus, holy shit. What do we do? Sarah, David can't know it's not his. The timing could work if we're careful. Marcus, Sarah, he had a vasectomy. Sarah, I know. I'm going to have to convince him it failed. It happens sometimes, right? The shower was still running. I quickly photographed the most damning messages, deleted the photos from her phone's recently deleted folder, and put everything back exactly where I'd found it. When Sarah came out of the bathroom in her terry cloth robe, hair wrapped in a towel, she looked like the woman I'd married. But now I knew better. Now I knew she was planning to look me in the eye and tell me I was going to be a father, knowing full well whose child she was carrying. You okay? She asked, noticing something in my expression. You look pale. Just tired, I said. Long day. She kissed my forehead. Get some rest. Tomorrow's Friday, we can sleep in this weekend. As she settled into bed beside me, I stared at the ceiling and realized I was living with a complete stranger. Friday morning, Sarah left for work at 7:23 a.m. with her usual kiss goodbye, telling me she might be late again because of client calls with the West Coast team. I waited exactly 12 minutes after her Camry disappeared around the corner before I called the law office of Patricia Hendricks, the divorce attorney my college roommate had used 2 years ago. I need a consultation, I told the receptionist. Today if possible. It's urgent. Mr. Davidson. We have a cancellation at 11:30 this morning. Would that work? 3 hours later, I sat across from Patricia Hendricks in her downtown office, surrounded by law books and framed degrees. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and graying blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun. Tell me everything, she said, sliding a legal pad across her mahogany desk. I laid it out chronologically. The pharmacy mix-up. The appointment confirmation. Following Sarah to Dr. Martinez's office. The text messages between her and Marcus. Patricia took notes without reaction, her pen scratching across the paper with mechanical precision. Do you still have photos of the text messages? She asked when I finished. I showed her my phone. She studied each screenshot carefully, occasionally nodding. This is good evidence of adultery, she said finally. Virginia is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still impact spousal support and property division. The fact that she's planning to deceive you about paternity makes this particularly egregious. What are my options? Several routes. We could file immediately based on adultery grounds. But given that she hasn't actually told you about the pregnancy yet. Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. How do you want to handle the confrontation? Do you want to expose her lie when she announces the pregnancy, or confront her now? I've been thinking about this for 3 days straight. She's planning to tell me I'm the father of another man's child. That's not just adultery, it's fraud. I want to let her dig the hole deeper. Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. That's risky. The longer you wait, the more emotionally invested she might become in the deception. And if she's talking about a promotion and raise, she might be planning major financial decisions based on her assumed future with you. What do you mean? If she gets this promotion, starts making joint financial commitments, maybe pushes for a bigger house or major purchases, you could be on the hook for more marital debt. Plus, there's the question of the child. Once it's born, even though you're not the biological father, if you're married to her and she lists you on the birth certificate. My stomach clenched. I'd be legally responsible. Potentially, yes. Virginia law presumes that a married woman's husband is the father of any child born during the marriage. Even with your vasectomy, even with DNA evidence, it can be complicated to undo legal paternity after the fact. The room felt smaller suddenly. So I need to file before the baby is born. Ideally, yes. And David? She set down her pen and looked at me directly. I need to ask this. Are you absolutely certain about your vasectomy? I know it sounds obvious, but failures do happen in rare cases. Less than 1%, but... I called Dr. Peterson yesterday, I interrupted. He pulled my file. The procedure was successful, and my follow-up test 6 months later confirmed 0 sperm count. There's no possibility this child is mine. Patricia nodded. Then we need to move carefully but quickly. I'll draft preliminary divorce papers, but we won't file them yet. In the meantime, I want you to document everything. Every lie she tells you, every late night, every interaction. Keep a journal with dates and times. She slid a business card across the desk. This is a private investigator I work with frequently. Linda Torres. If you want concrete evidence of the affair beyond text messages, she can get it. The business card felt heavy in my palm. How much would that cost? Her retainer is $1,500. For this type of case, probably another $1,000 to $2,000 depending on how long it takes to get photos or video evidence. I thought about our joint savings account. The $38,000 Sarah and I had built up over 5 years of marriage, money we planned to use for a down payment on a bigger house someday. Money she was probably already mentally spending on her new life with Marcus. Do it, I said. Patricia made a note. One more thing. Do not, under any circumstances, confront her or let on that you know anything until we have all our evidence compiled and our strategy finalized. Can you do that? Can you continue living with her, sleeping next to her, pretending everything is normal? I thought about Sarah's radiant smile leaving the doctor's office yesterday. Her casual lies about working late. The way she'd kissed my forehead last night while planning to destroy my life. Yes, I said. I can do that. Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced since this nightmare began, a sense of control. For the first time in 3 days, I wasn't just reacting to Sarah's deception. I was planning my response. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, lunch meeting ran over. Probably another late night. Sorry babe. Face blowing a kiss. I stared at that kissing emoji for a long moment before typing back, no problem. Love you. The lie came so easily now it scared me. That weekend, Sarah was unusually affectionate. She made my favorite blueberry pancakes Saturday morning, curled up next to me during a Netflix binge, and even suggested we drive out to Miller's Farm Market like we used to do when we were first married. Walking through the rows of pumpkins and apple trees, her hand in mine, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined everything. Almost. Then she stopped at a display of hand-carved wooden cribs. Look how cute these are, she said, running her fingers along the maple railings. Aren't they beautiful? The vendor, an elderly man with calloused hands, beamed at us. Made that one myself. Rock solid, built to last generations. You folks expecting? Not yet, Sarah said with a shy smile. But hopefully soon. I watched her face as she lied to a complete stranger, saw how naturally the deception rolled off her tongue. The old man launched into a story about his own grandchildren while Sarah nodded along, occasionally glancing at me with sparkling eyes. We should remember this place, she whispered as we walked away. You know, for when the time comes. Absolutely, I managed. Monday morning brought Linda Torres into my life. Patricia's private investigator was nothing like I'd expected, mid-40s, unremarkable in every way, the kind of person you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting her. Which was probably the point. Your wife's pattern is pretty predictable, Linda said, reviewing the timeline I'd provided. Late nights on Tuesdays and Thursdays, weekend work sessions, lunch meetings that run long. We should have photographic evidence within a week. She handed me a small device that looked like a phone charger. GPS tracker. Magnetic, waterproof. If you can get this on her car, we'll know exactly where she's going. Is that legal? It's your wife's car, and you're married. Legally, yes. Ethically. She shrugged. That's between you and your conscience. Tuesday evening, while Sarah showered, I attached the tracker to the underside of her Camry's rear bumper. My hands shook the entire time, and I kept glancing at our bathroom window, terrified she'd see me crouched behind her car like a criminal. The device activated immediately on Linda's app. A small blue dot labeled S. Davidson appeared on a map of our neighborhood. Wednesday morning, that blue dot traveled from our house to Brennan & Associates Marketing, exactly as expected. But at 11:47 a.m., it moved to the Riverside Shopping Center. At 12:15 p.m., it moved to Woodland Heights, an upscale apartment complex on the other side of town. I called Linda immediately. She's at some apartments on Maple Ridge Drive. I'm 20 minutes out. Don't do anything stupid. Those were the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in my office at Morrison & Associates Insurance, staring at my computer screen, but the blue dot on my phone consumed every thought. Sarah was in someone's apartment at 12:35 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, probably Marcus's apartment, probably in his bed. Linda's text arrived at 2:23 p.m., got what we need. 3 photos, very clear. She left at 2:18. That evening, Sarah came home at her normal time with Chinese takeout and stories about her stressful day. She complained about difficult clients, praised Marcus's creative input on their presentations, and asked about my day with such genuine interest that I almost broke down and confronted her right there. Instead, I nodded and smiled and asked if she wanted to watch a movie. Actually, she said, settling onto our couch with a strange expression, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. My heart stopped. This was it. The pregnancy announcement I'd been dreading and anticipating for 6 days. What's on your mind? Sarah took my hands in hers, her engagement ring catching the lamplight. The same ring I'd saved for 3 months to buy, the ring she'd worn while building a life with another man. David, I know we said we were done trying for kids. I know the vasectomy was our decision together, and I supported it completely. She paused, biting her lower lip. But what if it wasn't as permanent as we thought? Here it was. The moment I'd been dreading for 6 days, sitting on our gray sectional sofa while my wife prepared to tell me the most elaborate lie of our marriage. What do you mean? I asked, proud that my voice remained steady. Sarah's eyes were bright with what looked like genuine excitement. I've been doing some research, and David, vasectomies can fail. It's rare, but it happens. Sometimes the vas deferens grow back together, or sometimes there are complications with the initial procedure. She was so convincing. If I didn't know the truth, if I hadn't seen Marcus's text messages about loving both of you, I might have believed her. The Sarah I'd married 8 years ago would never have been capable of this level of deception. Sarah, what are you saying exactly? She squeezed my hands tighter. I'm 3 days late, David. And I'm never late. Never. 3 days late. According to Dr. Martinez's appointment records that I'd researched online, Sarah was actually 8 weeks pregnant. But she needed the timeline to work, needed me to believe this was a recent development that coincided with some imaginary vasectomy failure. Have you taken a test? I asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. She leaned forward, her face inches from mine. How would you feel if we were having a baby? I know it would be unexpected, but... I'd be shocked, I said honestly. But Sarah, the chances of vasectomy failure after 3 years are basically 0. Dr. Peterson confirmed my sperm count was 0 at my 6-month follow-up. I watched her face carefully as I mentioned Dr. Peterson. She didn't flinch, didn't show any sign that this complicated her story. She'd obviously prepared for this objection. But what if something changed? What if there was some kind of recanalization? She used the medical term perfectly, which meant she'd done her homework. David, stranger things have happened. And if I am pregnant, wouldn't it be amazing? After everything we went through trying to conceive, what if this was meant to be? The manipulation was breathtaking. She was rewriting our fertility struggles as destiny, positioning herself as the grateful recipient of a miracle rather than an adulteress carrying another man's child. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I said. Take a test first. Then we'll figure out next steps. Sarah nodded eagerly. I'll pick one up tomorrow after work. David, I know this is crazy to even think about, but I have this feeling. She placed my hand on her still flat stomach. What if our family is finally happening? Our family. The words made my stomach turn. I was touching the spot where Marcus Chen's baby was growing while my wife looked at me with practiced sincerity. We'll see what the test says, I managed. That night, Sarah fell asleep curled against me, one hand protectively over her abdomen. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how many more lies were coming. The pregnancy test would obviously be positive. She'd probably bought it weeks ago, waiting for the right moment for this performance. Then would come the doctor visits she'd need me to attend, the ultrasound appointments where she'd pretend to be surprised by how far along she was. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Linda Torres, package delivered. Check your email. I slipped out of bed carefully, grabbed my laptop from the kitchen, and opened Linda's message with 3 attached photographs. The first showed Sarah's Camry parked outside Woodland Heights Apartments at 12:31 p.m. The second showed Sarah and Marcus walking hand in hand toward Building C, both smiling. But the third photograph hit me like a physical blow, Sarah and Marcus kissing passionately against his apartment door, her hands tangled in his hair, his hand resting on her lower back. They looked happy. Not guilty or conflicted, but genuinely, radiantly happy. Like two people in love planning their future together. I closed the laptop and sat in our dark kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the life Sarah and I had built together. Wedding photos on the refrigerator. Her coffee mug in the sink. The grocery list in her handwriting stuck to the cabinet door. Tomorrow she'd come home with a positive pregnancy test and the performance would begin in earnest. But now I had photographs of her betrayal, documented evidence of her lies, and a divorce attorney ready to file papers. For the first time since that Tuesday afternoon at Walgreens, I smiled. Sarah had no idea what was coming. Thursday evening arrived with Sarah practically glowing as she walked through our front door at 6:15 p.m., 30 minutes earlier than usual. She was carrying a small CVS bag and wearing the kind of smile I remembered from our honeymoon. David, she called out, her voice trembling with what sounded like genuine excitement. Can you come to the living room? I have something to show you. I found her sitting on our gray sectional, the CVS bag in her lap, looking like a woman about to deliver the most wonderful news of her husband's life. The performance was beginning. I took the test, she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Actually, I took 3 tests. David, I can't believe I'm saying this, but... She pulled a pregnancy test from the bag with shaking hands. It's positive. All 3 were positive. She handed me the test, 2 pink lines clear as day in the little window. I stared at it, this piece of plastic that represented the collapse of everything I believed about my marriage, while Sarah watched my face with desperate anticipation. That's... I started, then stopped, letting the silence stretch. Sarah, this is impossible. You know it's impossible. I know it seems impossible, but David, I called Dr. Peterson's office today. The lie came so smoothly I almost admired her preparation. I spoke with his nurse, and she said vasectomy failures do happen. She's seen it 3 times in 15 years. The vas deferens can reconnect, especially in younger men. Younger men. Even her fictional medical advice was tailored to make me feel special. What did Dr. Peterson say exactly? I pressed. I didn't speak to him directly, he's in surgery this week, but Nancy, his nurse, she said we should come in for a sperm count test to confirm. She said if I'm pregnant, then obviously something changed with your procedure. Nancy. She'd even invented a name for Dr. Peterson's nurse. The real nurse was named Carol, and I'd spoken to her just yesterday to verify my vasectomy records. But Sarah didn't know that. This is incredible, I said, setting the test on our coffee table. 8 years of marriage, 3 years thinking we couldn't have kids, and now. I know. Sarah launched herself into my arms, tears streaming down her face. David, I'm so happy I can barely think straight. I know this wasn't planned, but doesn't it feel like fate? Holding her while she cried tears of joy over her successful deception was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done. Her body was warm and familiar against mine, her hair smelled like the vanilla shampoo she'd used for years, and for just a moment, muscle memory made me want to cry with relief that we were finally going to have the family we'd always wanted. Then I remembered Marcus Chen's hand on her back in Linda's photograph. When do you think it happened? I asked. I mean, when do you think we conceived? Sarah pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes. Well, I'm about 5 weeks along according to the test timeline, so probably that weekend we went to Virginia Beach. Remember that Saturday night when we got back from dinner at Morrison's Grill? Virginia Beach. We'd gone there 6 weeks ago for our friend Tom's bachelor party weekend. Sarah had come with us, one of only 3 wives who'd made the trip. I remembered that Saturday night, we'd had too much wine with dinner, came back to our hotel room laughing and happy, made love twice before falling asleep to the sound of ocean waves. It was a perfect memory to anchor her lie to. Romantic, memorable, believable. Except I knew she'd been texting Marcus that entire weekend. I'd seen the messages, missing you already, and can't wait to get home to you. That was a good night, I said carefully. The best, she whispered. David, I have to ask you something, and please don't think I'm crazy. Can we not tell anyone yet? I know it's exciting, and I know your family will be thrilled, but I want to wait until after the first doctor's appointment. Just in case. She bit her lip. I've wanted this for so long, I don't think I could handle it if something went wrong and everyone knew. Not tell anyone. Of course. She needed time to coordinate her story, to make sure Marcus was prepared, to figure out exactly how far along she could claim to be without raising suspicions. Whatever you want, I said. When do you want to schedule the doctor's appointment? I already called Dr. Chen's office. They can see us next Friday at 10 a.m. And David? They said they'll do an ultrasound to determine exact dates and make sure everything looks healthy. Next Friday. October 28th. I made a mental note to call Patricia Hendricks first thing tomorrow morning. An ultrasound would show that Sarah was closer to 9 weeks pregnant, not the 5 weeks she was claiming. She'd have to explain the discrepancy somehow, probably by acting surprised and letting Dr. Chen assume the Virginia Beach timeline was wrong. I can't wait, I said, and meant it. I genuinely couldn't wait to watch her try to navigate that appointment. Sarah spent the rest of the evening researching baby names on her laptop, curled up next to me on the couch like nothing in our world had changed. She showed me nursery ideas on Pinterest, talked about converting our guest bedroom, wondered aloud whether we'd need a bigger car. I keep thinking about what your mom is going to say, she laughed. She's been dropping hints about grandchildren for 3 years. My mother. Who'd held me while I cried after our second miscarriage, who'd supported my decision to get the vasectomy, who thought Sarah was the perfect daughter-in-law. The thought of my mom's face when she learned the truth made my chest tight with rage. She'll be over the moon, I managed. And Jake will probably make some joke about your swimmers being stronger than medical science. Sarah grinned at the thought of my brother's inevitable reaction. She was so comfortable with this deception, so confident in her ability to fool everyone who loved us. Not just me, our families, our friends, everyone in our life who would celebrate this pregnancy and welcome this child would be living inside her lie. At 11:23 p.m., after Sarah had fallen asleep, I texted Linda Torres, need to move faster. She announced pregnancy tonight. Doctor appointment scheduled for next Friday, 10 a.m. at Dr. Chen's office on Maple Street. Linda's response came immediately, understood. We'll have final evidence package ready by Monday. Patricia wants to file Tuesday morning before the appointment. Tuesday morning. 4 days from now, while Sarah was getting ready for work, probably texting Marcus about their future together, a process server would knock on our door with divorce papers citing adultery and fraud. I looked at my wife sleeping peacefully beside me, one hand still resting protectively over her stomach. In 4 days, her entire world would collapse. Her job would become complicated, office affairs rarely stayed private once legal papers got involved. Her family would know she cheated on me. Her friends would have to choose sides. But right now, she was sleeping soundly, dreaming of the life she was building on lies. I closed my eyes and started counting down the hours until Tuesday morning. Friday morning arrived with Sarah humming in the shower, the sound of someone genuinely happy with her life. I lay in bed listening to her off-key rendition of some pop song, wondering if Marcus had heard her sing in his shower too. At 7:15 a.m., she emerged wrapped in her terry cloth robe, hair dripping, with a radiant smile I hadn't seen in months. I think I'm getting morning sickness, she announced, pressing a hand to her stomach. Just a little queasy, but that's normal, right? It means everything is progressing well. Morning sickness at 5 weeks pregnant, according to her timeline. More likely, she was actually experiencing legitimate symptoms at 9 weeks and had to pretend they were just beginning. The detail work of her deception was impressive and nauseating in equal measure. Should I make you some toast? I offered. Plain carbs are supposed to help. You're so sweet. She kissed my cheek, her lips still damp from the shower. But I think I'll just grab something light at work. Marcus mentioned his wife swore by ginger tea when she was pregnant. Marcus mentioned his wife. The casual way she dropped his name into conversations about pregnancy made my skin crawl. His divorce status was apparently another lie, or maybe she was talking about his ex-wife. Either way, she was discussing morning sickness remedies with her lover while pretending to discover pregnancy symptoms for the first time with me. I'll pick up some ginger tea on my way home, I said. After she left for work at 7:34 a.m., I called Patricia Hendricks from our kitchen landline, staring at the grocery list stuck to our refrigerator in Sarah's handwriting: milk, bread, prenatal vitamins, remember, chicken breast, rice, ice cream. She'd literally written, prenatal vitamins, on our shared grocery list with a reminder note to herself. The audacity was breathtaking. Patricia, it's David Davidson. She announced the pregnancy last night. We need to file Monday morning, not Tuesday. What's the rush? Patricia's voice was crisp even at 8 a.m. She's getting more confident, more elaborate with the lies. And she scheduled a doctor's appointment for next Friday with our family physician. If we wait until after that appointment, she'll have medical documentation in our joint names. That could complicate things legally. Good point. I'll have the papers ready Monday at 9 a.m. Linda Torres is delivering her final evidence package this morning. Apparently she got something significant yesterday. Something significant. My stomach clenched. What kind of significant? Audio recordings. Your wife and Marcus had lunch at Romano's Bistro yesterday, and Linda had equipment at the next table. According to her preliminary notes, they discussed timeline coordination for the pregnancy announcement and something about Marcus looking at job opportunities in other cities. Other cities. Marcus was planning to leave town, probably after Sarah's divorce was finalized and they could be together openly. They were already making long-term plans while I bought ginger tea for her fake morning sickness. I'll be in your office at 9 a.m. Monday, I said. The weekend passed in a surreal blur of domestic normalcy. Sarah researched cribs online, called her sister to ask vague questions about early pregnancy symptoms for a friend at work, and suggested we drive past the elementary school in Riverside Heights just to see what the neighborhood looks like. Sunday evening, while Sarah napped on the couch with her laptop open to a baby registry website, I stepped outside to take a call from Linda Torres. The Romanos recording is damning, Linda said without preamble. Sarah told Marcus she felt guilty lying to you, but that it was too late to tell the truth now. Marcus suggested they wait until after the baby is born to file for divorce, let you bond with the child first to make the custody situation cleaner. My hands went numb. Custody situation. They want you to establish paternal attachment, then fight for shared custody later. That way Marcus gets to be the real father while you pay child support for 18 years. It's calculated, David. This isn't just an affair that got complicated, they're planning to systematically destroy your life. I looked through our living room window at Sarah sleeping peacefully, her hand resting on her belly, laptop displaying a $1,400 convertible crib in cherry wood finish. Monday morning can't come fast enough, I said. There's one more thing. Marcus mentioned he's been offered a position with Brennan and Associates Denver office. Salary bump, management track. He's planning to take it after New Year, and Sarah's going with him. Denver. They were planning to take my supposed child 1,500 miles away after I'd spent months bonding with a baby that wasn't mine, leaving me with nothing but child support payments and the memory of their deception. I hung up and walked back inside, where Sarah was stirring awake, stretching like a cat in the lamplight. Hey, she murmured sleepily. I was dreaming about the baby. Do you think it's a boy or girl? Looking at her face, soft and vulnerable in the dim light, genuinely glowing with happiness about her pregnancy, I almost felt sorry for her. In 14 hours, everything she was building would collapse. I guess we'll find out, I said. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzle-soaked, the kind of October weather that matched my mood perfectly. Sarah left for work at 7:28 a.m. with her usual kiss goodbye, humming that same pop song from Friday morning. She was wearing the navy blue dress I'd complimented her on during our third date 9 years ago, paired with the pearl earrings my mother had given her for Christmas. I'm thinking we should start looking at minivans this weekend, she said, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror. I know it sounds crazy, but if we're really doing this, we need to be practical about transportation. Minivans. She was already spending money we didn't have on a future that would never exist. I wondered if Marcus had weighed in on vehicle recommendations too. Let's wait until after Friday's appointment, I said. Make sure everything is progressing normally first. You're right. I'm just so excited I can barely contain myself. She squeezed my hand. David, I know this wasn't planned, but I have never been happier in my entire life. After her Camry disappeared around the corner, I sat in our kitchen with coffee that tasted like sawdust and waited for 9 a.m. The grocery list was still stuck to the refrigerator, prenatal vitamins, remember. Like evidence of a crime, I was finally ready to report. At exactly 9:03 a.m., I walked into Patricia Hendrick's law office carrying a manila folder with 8 days' worth of documented lies. Patricia was waiting with Linda Torres and a stack of legal papers that would end my marriage. The audio from Romano's Bistro is the smoking gun, Patricia said, sliding a transcript across her desk. Sarah explicitly discusses deceiving you about paternity and coordinating a timeline to make the pregnancy seem recent. I read the highlighted sections with growing disgust. Sarah asterisk, I feel horrible lying to David's face every night, but what choice do I have now? If I tell him the truth, he'll leave me, and then what? I'll be a single mother and you'll be in Denver. Marcus asterisk, the timing actually works in our favor. Let him think the baby is his for the first year or so. Get attached. Then when we file for divorce, he'll fight for custody rights, which means child support. You get financial security, I get to be the real father without legal complications until we're ready. Sarah asterisk, that feels so manipulative. Marcus asterisk, Sarah, he's going to find out eventually. This way, everyone gets what they need. He gets time with the child he'll love anyway, you get financial support during the transition, and we get to be together without rushing into anything messy. The clinical calculation of it made my hands shake. They weren't just planning to fool me about the baby's paternity, they were engineering a long-term financial scam that would last nearly 2 decades. There's more, Linda said, opening her laptop. I've been monitoring Marcus Chen's apartment complex since Thursday. Sarah has been there 6 times in the past 4 days, including yesterday morning from 10:15 a.m. to 1:47 p.m. On a Monday. During work hours. She showed me time-stamped photographs, Sarah's car in the apartment parking lot, Sarah walking up the stairs to Building C, Sarah leaving with disheveled hair and different clothes than she'd arrived in. She called in sick to work yesterday, I said numbly. Told me she was having bad morning sickness and needed to rest. She spent 3.5 hours with Marcus instead, Patricia said. Probably coordinating their story for Friday's doctor appointment. I thought about Sarah's text from yesterday afternoon, feeling much better. Think the ginger tea is helping. Love you so much, Red Heart. She'd sent that message 20 minutes after leaving Marcus's apartment. I want this filed immediately, I said. Today. This morning. Patricia nodded. The process server is already en route to your house. Sarah should be served the papers around 10:30 a.m. at work. I've also prepared a restraining order preventing her from making major financial decisions or accessing your joint accounts without court approval. What about the house? You'll both have rights to remain in the marital home until the property division is settled, but given the adultery evidence, you're in a strong position to keep it. Especially since she's planning to move to Denver with Marcus anyway. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah would probably be relieved to lose the house, it would make her escape to Colorado easier to execute. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, client meeting moved to 11 a.m. Going to grab breakfast with Marcus to prep. Hope your Monday isn't too boring. Face blowing a kiss. Breakfast with Marcus. At 10:30 a.m., while they were probably discussing nursery themes over pancakes, a stranger would walk into Brennan and Associates and hand Sarah divorce papers citing adultery, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I should probably find somewhere else to be when she gets home tonight, I said. Patricia shook her head. Actually, I'd recommend staying. Let her come to you with whatever story she's prepared. The more lies she tells after being served, the stronger our case becomes. Just don't engage in arguments, don't admit to any surveillance, and don't discuss settlement terms without me present. I left the law office at 10:47 a.m. and drove aimlessly around town, eventually parking at Riverside Park where Sarah and I had had our first official date 8 years ago. The playground was empty except for 2 mothers pushing toddlers on swings, their laughter carrying across the crisp October air. My phone rang at 11:23 a.m. Sarah's contact photo filled the screen, that picture from the beach last summer, all sunshine and joy and lies I'd been too trusting to see. I let it ring 6 times before answering. David. Her voice was barely a whisper. I need to come home. Right now. Can you meet me at the house? What's wrong? I asked, though I knew exactly what was wrong. There was a mistake at work. A legal thing. I can't talk about it over the phone, but I need you to come home. Please. A mistake. Even now, even after being served with evidence of her affair, she was still lying. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. As I drove home to face my wife's next performance, I realized I felt something I hadn't experienced in over a week, relief. The waiting was over. The pretending was over. Now we could finally tell each other the truth. I arrived home at 11:47 a.m. to find Sarah's Camry already in the driveway, parked crooked like she'd been in a hurry. Through our front window, I could see her pacing in the living room, still wearing that navy blue dress, her phone pressed to her ear. When I walked through the front door, she was ending a call with someone. "I have to go." "He's here," she said into the phone, then hung up immediately. "Marcus, probably." Sarah turned to face me, and I was shocked by how different she looked from the glowing woman who'd left for work 4 hours ago. Her makeup was streaked from crying, her hair disheveled, and she was clutching a manila envelope against her chest like a shield. "David, I can explain everything," she said before I'd even closed the door behind me. "This is all a huge misunderstanding." I looked at the envelope in her hands, the divorce papers Patricia had prepared, probably still smelling like the copy machine at the law office. "What kind of misunderstanding?" I asked, setting my keys on the hallway table with deliberate calm. "Someone hired a private investigator to follow me. They took pictures, recorded conversations. David, I think your insurance company is investigating you for fraud or something, and I got caught up in it by accident." The creativity was impressive. Even with photographic evidence of her affair, she was trying to spin this as something that happened to us rather than something she had done to me. "My insurance company," I repeated flatly. "It's the only thing that makes sense. These divorce papers." She held up the envelope with shaking hands. "They're saying I committed adultery, but David, you know that's impossible. We're trying to have a baby together." "Why would I jeopardize that?" "We're trying to have a baby together." She was still maintaining the pregnancy lie even after being served with divorce papers that detailed her affair with Marcus Chen. "Sarah," I said carefully, "what exactly do the papers say about adultery?" She opened the envelope with trembling fingers, scanning Patricia's legal language. "They claim I've been having an affair with someone named Marcus Chen, which is insane. Marcus is just a coworker. They have photographs of us having lunch, but that's completely normal workplace behavior." "What else do the papers say?" "Something about fraud related to." She paused, reading more carefully. "To misrepresenting paternity of a child conceived through adultery." Her voice cracked on the last word. "David, this is crazy. Someone is trying to destroy our marriage right when we're finally getting everything we wanted." The performance was flawless. If I hadn't spent the last week gathering evidence, if I hadn't seen those text messages about loving both of you, I might have been convinced that my wife was the victim of some elaborate mistake. "Show me the pictures," I said. Sarah hesitated for just a moment too long. "David, you don't want to see them. They're taken out of context, but they look bad. Like something they're not." I said, "Show me." She reluctantly pulled out Linda's photographs. The first two, Sarah's car at the apartment complex, Sarah and Marcus walking together, she handed over quickly. But when she reached the third photograph, the one showing them kissing passionately against his apartment door, she clutched it to her chest. "This one isn't what it looks like," she whispered. I held out my hand. After a long moment, she gave me the photograph. Looking at it again, in our living room while my wife watched my face for a reaction, hit differently than seeing it on Linda's laptop. This was my Sarah, the woman who promised to love only me for the rest of her life, kissing another man with an intensity one remembered from our early dating days. "What exactly am I supposed to think this is?" I asked, holding up the image. Sarah's face crumpled. "David, I made a mistake." Finally. After 8 days of perfect lies and calculated deception, Sarah was about to tell me something approaching the truth. I sat down on our gray sectional, the same couch where she'd announced her pregnancy just 4 days ago, and waited. "It started as just friendship," she began, still standing across the room like she was afraid to get too close. "Marcus was going through his divorce, and I was listening to him vent about his ex-wife. We'd grab lunch sometimes, just as friends. Friends. I thought about the text messages I'd photographed. I love you. Both of you. When did it become more than friendship?" I asked. Sarah's hands moved protectively over her stomach. "David, I need you to understand something first. I love you. I have always loved you. What happened with Marcus, it doesn't change that." "When, Sarah?" She sat down on the edge of our coffee table, facing me but not quite meeting my eyes. "July. The weekend you went to your brother's bachelor party in Charlotte. Marcus and I were working on the Henderson account, and we stayed late at the office. We ordered dinner, had some wine. July. 3 months ago. Which meant every anniversary dinner, every movie night, every time we'd made love since July had been happening while she was building a relationship with Marcus Chen. How many times?" The question came out harder than I'd intended. "David, please don't make me. How many times did you sleep with him?" Tears were streaming down her face now. "I don't know. Maybe 20. 30. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just became this thing I couldn't stop. 20 or 30 times. While telling me she loved me every single day. While planning our future together. While wearing the wedding ring I'd saved 3 months to buy. The baby," I said. "Is it mine?" The silence stretched for exactly 11 seconds. I counted them. "I don't know," she whispered finally. "The timing, it could be either of you. Either of you. Like Marcus and I were interchangeable sperm donors in her twisted mathematics. Sarah, I had a vasectomy 3 years ago. You drove me to the appointment. You bought me ice cream afterward. There is no possible way this baby is mine." Her face went completely white. "But vasectomies can fail. I called Dr. Peterson's office last week," I interrupted. "My sperm count was 0 at the 6-month follow-up and has remained 0 at every annual checkup since. Carol, his actual nurse, confirmed that my procedure was completely successful." Sarah stared at me, and I watched her realize that I'd known the truth for much longer than the 4 hours since she'd been served divorce papers. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. 8 days. "Since the pharmacist at Walgreens handed me your prenatal vitamins by mistake." 8 days. She said it like she was testing the weight of the words. "You've known for 8 days, and you let me tell you about the pregnancy. You let me plan our future." The accusation in her voice was incredible. She was angry at me for discovering her lies. What was the plan, Sarah? Really? Were you going to let me raise Marcus's child for 18 years? Move to Denver with both of us? Or were you always planning to leave once I was attached enough to pay child support? Her sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit close to home. You recorded us, she said suddenly. At Romano's yesterday. That's how you knew about Denver. I hired a private investigator, yes. So you've been lying to me too. Sarah's tears had stopped, replaced by something harder. For 8 days, you've been pretending to love me while gathering evidence to destroy my life. The projection was breathtaking. After months of systematic deception, she was positioning herself as the victim of my week-long investigation. I wanted to see how far you'd go, I said. Turns out, pretty damn far. Sarah stood up abruptly, pacing to our front window. Marcus wants me to move to Denver with him. The baby and me. He's going to raise our child. Our child. Even now, she couldn't bring herself to say, my child, or his child. It was always ours, like she and Marcus were the family unit and I was the outsider. When were you going to tell me? I asked. After the baby was born. After you'd had time to bond. Her voice was barely audible. Marcus thought it would be easier that way. Less traumatic for everyone. Less traumatic. They'd planned to let me fall in love with a child for months before ripping that relationship away, and somehow convinced themselves this was merciful. Sarah, look at me. She turned from the window, her face streaked with mascara. I want you to pack a bag and leave. Tonight. Go to Marcus's apartment, go to your sister's, go wherever you want. But I want you out of this house. David, we can fix this. No, I said, standing up. We can't. You're carrying another man's baby and planning to move 1,500 miles away with him. There's nothing left to fix. She nodded slowly, like she was finally accepting that her performance was over. I'll come back tomorrow for more of my things, she said quietly. Fine. But Sarah? Don't take anything that isn't clearly yours. My lawyer is watching our finances very carefully. As she walked upstairs to pack, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the debris of our marriage. Wedding photos that now looked like evidence of fraud. The positive pregnancy test still sitting on our coffee table like a prop from a play that had finally ended. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Hendricks. How did she take it? I typed back, she's leaving tonight. It's over. For the first time in 8 days, those words felt like relief instead of devastation. 3 hours after Sarah left with a hastily packed suitcase, I was sitting in our kitchen with a beer I couldn't taste when my phone rang. Jake's name appeared on the screen, and I realized I'd been dreading this call since Monday morning. Hey, little brother, Jake's voice was cheerful. Mom said you missed dinner Sunday. Everything okay? I stared at the refrigerator, at Sarah's grocery list still stuck there with its damning reminder, prenatal vitamins, remember. How was I supposed to explain this to my family? To people who'd welcomed Sarah as a daughter and sister, who'd celebrated our marriage, who'd been waiting 8 years for us to give them a grandchild and nephew? Actually, Jake, I need to tell you something. Can you sit down? The cheerfulness drained from his voice. What's wrong? Is Sarah okay? Sarah and I are getting divorced. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, what? David, what are you talking about? You guys seemed fine at Tom's wedding last month. Tom's wedding. Where Sarah had caught the bouquet and laughed about it being a sign. Where she'd slow danced with me too, at last, and whispered that she loved our life together. 3 weeks after that wedding, she'd announced her pregnancy with Marcus's child. She's been having an affair since July. She's pregnant, and it's not mine. Jesus Christ. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. Are you sure? I mean, are you absolutely certain? I had a vasectomy 3 years ago, remember? You made jokes about me shooting blanks at your birthday party. But those can fail sometimes. Jake, I have photographs of her with him. Text messages. Recorded conversations. She admitted everything this afternoon. Another long silence. Then, where are you right now? At home. She moved out a few hours ago. I'm coming over. Don't go anywhere, don't drink any more beer, don't do anything stupid. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Jake arrived in 18 minutes, letting himself in with the spare key Sarah had given him 2 Christmases ago. He found me still sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of my collapsed marriage, divorce papers, photographs from Linda Torres, printouts of text messages. Show me, he said simply. I walked him through everything chronologically. The pharmacy mix-up. Following Sarah to Dr. Martinez's office. The private investigator. The Romano's bistro recording where she and Marcus planned my financial destruction. Jake read every document, studied every photograph, his face growing darker with each revelation. Let him bond with the child first, he read aloud from the transcript. Then he'll fight for custody rights, which means child support. He looked up at me. David, they were going to steal 18 years of your life. I know. And $150,000 minimum in child support payments. Jake was doing the math, his engineering brain calculating the full scope of their scam. Plus college costs, medical expenses, everything else. This wasn't just an affair that got complicated, this was organized fraud. I hadn't thought about the actual dollar amounts before. The number hit me like a physical blow. Have you told Mom and Dad yet? Jake asked. You're the first person I've called. He nodded grimly. We should drive over there tonight. Together. Mom's going to be devastated, she talks about Sarah like she's already her daughter. My chest tightened thinking about my mother's face when she learned the truth. Mom had bought Sarah a world's best mom-to-be mug last Christmas as a hopeful hint. It was probably still in our cabinet upstairs. There's something else, I said. Sarah's planning to move to Denver with Marcus after New Year. She would have taken the baby 1,500 miles away. Jake stared at me for a long moment, then walked to our refrigerator and tore down Sarah's grocery list, crumpling it into a tight ball. We're going to destroy her in court, he said quietly. Both of them. 2 weeks after Sarah moved out, I was learning to live alone in a house that felt like a museum of lies. Every room held memories that had been recontaminated by the truth: the kitchen where she'd announced her fake pregnancy, the bedroom where she'd taken Marcus's calls while I slept beside her, the living room where she'd researched baby cribs for another man's child. On Thursday morning, November 9th, I was drinking coffee and scrolling through emails when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Davidson. This is Dr. Maria Martinez's office. We're calling to confirm Sarah's appointment tomorrow at 2:15 p.m. for her 12-week ultrasound. My hand froze around the coffee mug. Sarah had kept the appointment. Even after the divorce papers, even after moving in with Marcus, she was still using my insurance for her prenatal care. I'm sorry, I said carefully, but Sarah and I are separated. She should be handling her own appointments now. Oh. The receptionist sounded confused. But you're listed as her emergency contact and insurance holder. She specifically requested that we call you to confirm. She specifically requested that they call me. Sarah was still playing games, still trying to manipulate the situation somehow. What exactly did she tell you? I asked. That there had been some family stress, but that you were still supportive of the pregnancy and wanted to be involved in medical decisions. She seemed very concerned about making sure you knew about tomorrow's appointment. Family stress. That's how she was describing adultery and fraud to her doctor. Ma'am, I need you to remove me from all of Sarah's medical information immediately. We're getting divorced, and I'm not the father of her child. The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, Mr. Davidson, I think there might be some confusion. Sarah's chart shows she's 12 weeks pregnant, and she's listed you as the father on all her intake forms. 12 weeks. If Sarah was 12 weeks pregnant now, that meant conception happened in mid-August, right around our anniversary weekend when we'd gone to that bed and breakfast in Shenandoah. She was still trying to make the timeline work, still weaving lies even with her doctor. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago, I said bluntly. There is no possibility I'm the father. Please remove my name from everything and redirect all bills to Sarah Davidson directly. After I hung up, I called Patricia immediately. She's still using your insurance, Patricia said after I explained the call. That's actually insurance fraud if she knows you're not the father. We can add that to our filing. But why would she want me to know about the appointment? What's the angle? My guess. She's hoping you'll show up. Maybe she thinks if you see the ultrasound, you'll have some emotional response that she can exploit. Or maybe Marcus is getting cold feet about the whole thing, and she's keeping you as backup. That afternoon, I made a decision that felt both petty and necessary. At 2 p.m., I drove to Dr. Martinez's office and parked where I could see the entrance. If Sarah wanted me to know about this appointment so badly, maybe it was time to understand why. At 2:12 p.m., Sarah's Camry pulled into the parking lot. But she wasn't alone. Marcus Chen got out of the passenger seat, and together they walked toward the medical building. He had his hand on her lower back in a gesture that looked both protective and possessive. I followed them inside, staying far enough back to avoid being seen. The waiting room was typical for an OBGYN office: soft lighting, parenting magazines, 2 other pregnant women with their partners. Sarah and Marcus sat in the corner, his arm around her shoulders while she filled out paperwork. Sarah Davidson. A nurse called out after 10 minutes. As they stood to follow the nurse back, Sarah glanced around the waiting room one final time. Her eyes met mine for just a second before I could look away. The shock on her face told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't expected me to actually show up. This had been some kind of test or manipulation that I'd accidentally turned against her. 20 minutes later, they emerged from the back area. Marcus was carrying ultrasound photos and grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Sarah looked pale and shaken, probably from seeing me in the waiting room. As they passed my chair, Sarah stopped. David? What are you doing here? Your doctor's office called to confirm the appointment, I said loudly enough for the other patients to hear. Since you listed me as the father on your intake forms. Marcus's grin disappeared. The other couples in the waiting room looked up from their magazines. I can explain, Sarah started. Can you? I stood up. Can you explain why you're committing insurance fraud? Why you're still using my medical benefits for another man's baby? The receptionist behind the desk was openly staring now. One of the pregnant women whispered something to her husband. Maybe we should take this outside, Marcus said quietly. No, I said. I think we should finish this conversation right here, where everyone can hear how Sarah's been lying to her doctor about who fathered her child. Sarah's face went bright red. David, please. 12 weeks pregnant, I continued. That's what they told me on the phone. Conception in mid-August. Want to tell everyone what we were doing in mid-August, Sarah? She grabbed Marcus's arm and practically ran toward the exit. I followed them outside to the parking lot, where Marcus finally turned to face me. Look, man, this is complicated. Actually, it's very simple, I interrupted. Sarah's been lying to everyone, her doctor, her insurance company, probably you too, about some of the details. How much has she told you about our anniversary weekend in Shenandoah? Marcus looked confused. Sarah was digging through her purse for car keys with shaking hands. What anniversary weekend? Marcus asked. August 15th through 18th. The weekend she told Dr. Martinez we conceived your baby. I watched Marcus's face change as he did the math. 12 weeks back from November 9th was mid-August. The same weekend Sarah had apparently told me she was working a company retreat. Sarah? Marcus's voice was sharp now. I thought you said the baby was conceived in July, after David's brother's bachelor party. Sarah had stopped looking for her keys. She was staring at the ground like she was hoping it would open up and swallow her. How many lies are you keeping track of, Sarah? I asked. Different stories for the doctor, for Marcus, for me. Must be exhausting. Fuck you, David, she said quietly. No, Sarah. Fuck you. Enjoy paying for your own medical bills from now on. As I walked back to my car, I heard Marcus's raised voice behind me. July. August. Which is it, Sarah? And what the hell is he talking about anniversary weekend? For the first time in 2 weeks, I was smiling as I drove home. 6 months later, I was standing in Judge Catherine Morrison's courtroom watching my ex-wife's carefully constructed world collapse in real time. The final hearing had taken 3 days, with Patricia methodically presenting our evidence like a prosecutor building a murder case. The court finds that Mrs. Davidson engaged in systematic fraud and adultery, Judge Morrison said, her voice cutting through the oak-paneled courtroom. The evidence clearly shows premeditated deception regarding paternity, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. Sarah sat at the defendant's table in a black maternity dress, 7 months pregnant and visibly uncomfortable. Marcus wasn't there. He'd moved to Denver alone in February after their relationship imploded following our parking lot confrontation. Apparently, Sarah's multiple timeline stories had been just the beginning of her lies to him too. In the matter of property division, the judge continued, the court awards the marital home at 1247 Elm Street to Mr. Davidson, along with all contents and equity therein. Our house. The one where Sarah had announced her fake pregnancy on our gray sectional sofa. Where she'd researched cribs for another man's baby while planning to steal 18 years of my life. Furthermore, Mrs. Davidson is ordered to repay Mr. Davidson the sum of $12,400 in medical expenses fraudulently charged to his insurance. I watched Sarah's shoulders slump. Her lawyer, a public defender who'd been assigned when she couldn't afford Patricia's fees, made notes on a legal pad. Regarding spousal support, Judge Morrison's voice grew harder. Given the egregious nature of Mrs. Davidson's deception and fraud, the court finds no basis for alimony. Mrs. Davidson forfeited any claim to support through her systematic betrayal of the marriage. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. We'd asked for this outcome, but hearing it declared in open court felt surreal. Sarah would leave this marriage with nothing except the debt from her lies. Finally, the court orders Mrs. Davidson to cease all contact with Mr. Davidson except through attorneys, and prohibits any future claims of paternity regarding the child she's carrying. The gavel fell with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom. 8 years of marriage ended in 37 minutes of legal proceedings. As we walked out, Sarah caught up to me in the hallway outside Judge Morrison's courtroom. David, please. I know you hate me, but I'm going to be a single mother with no job and no money. Marcus won't return my calls. My family barely speaks to me. I have nowhere to go. She looked genuinely desperate, her face puffy from pregnancy and stress. For just a moment, I remembered the woman who'd driven me home from my vasectomy with ice cream and Netflix queued up on her laptop. You should have thought about that before you decided to commit fraud, I said quietly. I made mistakes, but I never meant for things to go this far. Sarah, you recorded me on your phone during our last conversation. Your lawyer tried to use it to claim I was harassing you. I shook my head. Even now, even after everything, you're still lying. Her face crumpled. I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to be anything other than this. That might have been the first completely honest thing she'd said to me in months. Figure it out, I said. But figure it out away from me. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my kitchen now, with Jake and a bottle of bourbon, Sarah's grocery list finally gone from the refrigerator. The house felt different already, like it was mine again instead of a crime scene I happened to live in. So what now? Jake asked, refilling my glass. I looked around at the rooms where Sarah had planned her deception, where she'd kissed me goodbye while carrying another man's child, where she'd announced the pregnancy that was supposed to destroy my life. Now, I said, I get to find out who I am without her lies. For the first time in 10 months, that felt like a gift instead of a punishment.